Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Rise, and good God, there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. I'm going to try and put out at least 2 or maybe even 3 videos because there were just like so many things to address. And on top of it, we also had a new trailer for Monster Hunter Stories 2. All of this stuff I kind of reacted live. The live stream should be live on the channel already. If you guys are curious, you can check out my reactions to everything that was talked about. But I figured I would do some more concise videos to talk about specific things in that digital event that I find to be particularly relevant for you guys that are looking to get into Monster Hunter Rise and you're curious for, you know, a more summarized version of the stuff that was talked about. So without any further ado, let's talk about the main topic of this video, which is switch skills. Now, this is something that I suspected was going to be happening. We were going to have something that was going to change the moveset of our weapons because we had seen multiple moves throughout several trailers that showed different things in the weapons, things that we weren't able to do in the demo, which is one of the reasons why I always said, guys, there's more coming, there's more stuff happening. This is not the end when it comes to like complexity in terms of the stuff that we'll be able to do with the demos. And so in today's trailer, they announced it and they called the feature Switch Skills. And basically the description that they have on the official website is, as you progress in the game, you'll unlock the ability to switch out certain regular attacks and Silkbind attacks at will. So this is not just limited to Silkbind, because initially a lot of people were saying, oh, you'll be able to swap around the Silkbinds almost like Hunter Art. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not just Silkbinds. There's also regular attacks, okay? Now, they also say each weapon has 3 types of these switch skills, granting you a larger repertoire of moves. So this means that either it is your Silkbind attack or some of your normal attacks. It's probably going to vary from weapon to weapon. The examples that we have on the official website are all Silkbind attacks, but in the trailer they showed us, for instance, that Blast Dash is going to replace Charged Shells in Gunlance. And anyone who's ever played Gunlance and knows what Charged Shell is, you're like, wow, that's going to be a significant change in playstyles, because being able to Blast Dash instead of Charged Shell, yeah, that is quite different. You go from one big shot and into a movement ability, which is pretty cool. I know that I'm looking forward to using Blast Dash a lot more than Charged Shell, because I did a lot of Charged Shelling back in World, but it's going to be interesting to see how they balance this stuff out. Again, they say here that each weapon has 3 types of switch skills, 3 things that you can swap around to fit your playstyle, which is going to be very interesting to come up with different builds and whatnot for each of these weapons. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over every single skill that you can change that they've showed. So that's going to be 1 skill per weapon, and I will tell you what that skill replaces and all that stuff. All of this information is in the website if you guys are curious, but in the video, obviously, I'm going to be telling you my thoughts on each of these changes. Now, for the Greatsword, the first one that they show is you can replace Hunting Edge with Adamant Charge Slash. Now, Hunting Edge, for those of you that don't remember, was the move that you had with the Greatsword that basically propels you forward, which was actually not a move that I used all that much. I didn't really like Hunting Edge a whole lot, personally. I don't know, you Greatsword mains, let me know how you guys felt about Hunting Edge, but to me, this is a no-brainer. Like, Hunting Edge out the door the second I could swap it out. If I was playing Greatsword, like, I just get rid of it and get Adamant Charge Slash instead. Although I'm not particularly familiar with this move, they do have the description here. It says it can be switched with Hunting Edge, a technique using a wire bug to dash forward and deliver a strong charge slash. Also allows you to withstand knockdown attacks by hardening your body as you dash forth. I think they showed this in one of the trailers that they showed today. Now, for the longsword, we have Silkbind Sakura Slash. And I seem to remember that Sakura Slash was a pretty popular thing back in Generations Ultimate, and they say you can switch this with Soaring Kick. So what does that mean? That means that you have to choose between Sakura Slash or what's it called? Helmbreaker? Spirit Helmbreaker? Yeah, I think it's Spirit Helmbreaker. You have to choose between those 2 because the Soaring Kick is what unlocks your Spirit Helmbreaker. So you either get Sakura Slash or the Helmbreaker. And what they say about the attack itself is that it's a whirlwind-like attack, dashing and slicing past the target with a wire bug. The hit causes multiple lacerations over time, inducing additional damage. The hit raises the spirit gauge by 1. Huh. So using Sakura Slash just straight up gives you 1 spirit gauge? I'm going to go ahead and assume that this costs 2 wire bugs, but still, that is a friggin' beast. But then again, using this, You're not gonna have a spender. Well, I guess you can use. No, do you even have a spender if you don't have? Shouldn't it lower the spirit gauge by 1? I'm so confused. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you'll. That means that probably you'll be able to swap one of the other Silkbind attacks to become a spender. You'll probably be able to exchange Serene Pose with something else that spends. Or so I would imagine. I'm not sure. You guys know me. I don't play a lot of longsword, but that's just, you know, me thinking out loud at the moment. But let me know, all of you longsword mains out there, how do you guys feel about Sakura Slash making a return? Then for the Sword and Shield, and I called this one out. This move was definitely in the trailer. It is Shoryugeki, but they're calling it Metsu Shoryugeki, which, for those of you that never played Street Fighter, I seem to remember one Street Fighter, I don't know exactly which one it was, but Ryu had the move where he goes from Hadouken into Metsu Hadouken! And you could also do the same thing for his Shoryuken punch, so I guess that's where they got the Metsu from. It's coming from Street Fighter, essentially, which Shoryugeki is basically the, you know, the dragon punch. Or at least it was. Now it seems that it spins a whole lot more, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's Ken's version of the Dragon Punch, because I remember Ken spinning more than Ryu. But yeah, this basically can be switched out with Windmill. So you have to choose between Windmill or Metsu Shoryugeki. Now, Metsu Shoryugeki is, at least just the Shoryugeki in general, is a lot more situational. The thing about it that makes me want to play it is that it's just straight up cooler. It's so cool to basically uppercut a monster in the face. It's just a really cool thing. You just pull out your shield and like, bam, uppercut to the face, and it's super satisfying whenever you pull this move off. Not to mention it's got redonkulous amounts of KO. Now, they describe it as a jumping wire bug attack that uses your shield to uppercut your target. At the beginning of the attack, there is a moment where you can perform a guard. A well-timed counter can further add to the damage dealt. That is awesome. You basically get, it's almost like another guard point for the Sword and Shield. Now, what I'm curious is, at the end of Metsu Shoryugeki, you see him coming back down with the shield. Now, in Generations Ultimate, it was not a choice. Basically, you go up, and then you come down with the shield, boom. But considering how many moves there are in Rise for when you're coming down with the Sword and Shield, I think that you might be able to choose whether you do a shield slam down, or you could potentially do the Helmbreaker, the Sword and Shield's Helmbreaker, because it also has one that just kind of like goes down, and depending on the type of monster, it would be cool if you're able to swap between those. But either way, I am super happy to see Shoryugeki making a comeback, because it's a skill that I personally really, really liked in Generations Ultimate, so that's pretty cool. Now, for the dual blades, we have the Tower Vault, and it says that it can be switched out with Piercing Bind. Now, Piercing Bind, if I remember correctly, was the ability for you to just stick a kunai in the monster and then attack it. And the more you attacked it, the more damage the explosion would deal when it was over. So that's a pretty good move. Tower Vault, essentially what it does is it launches a wire bug upwards, and it launches you with that wire bug. This action does not do any damage, but it allows you to move through the air, and in most cases, even with your weapon drawn. So the idea here is, from what we see in the trailer, is basically you can jump up and then you can do the Beyblade move from the dual blades. Although you don't necessarily need Tower Vault to do that, because I've pulled off the Beyblade move without using it. I'm just assuming that the Tower Vault makes it easier, and at the same time, it's just a jump on demand without you having to sheath your weapon. Because if your weapon is sheathed, you can actually jump upwards using the, what was it, ZL plus X, and you just throw yourself upwards with your weapon sheathed, and then while you're mid-air, you can trigger Demon Mode, and then you can just press, I think it was A. You press A and you go into an attack, and if you hit the monster, then you can go into the Beyblade move. But the Tower Vault just kind of like simplifies that, and in a way, it almost gives you the mobility of the Insect Glaive, because the Insect Glaive is one of those weapons that can just, on demand, jump up. This one's obviously going to cost you at least one wire bug. I would assume it would only be one wire bug, considering that it's a move that doesn't actually deal damage, but who knows, we'll see. But either way, it's a pretty decent move for the dual blades, which was also the least voted weapon in my all weapons tournament, but we'll see how that pans out in the final game. Now, for the lance, we have the Spiral Thrust, and this can be switched out with Anchor Rage. Now, Anchor Rage is the counter, if I remember correctly, because I haven't played the demo in a while, because I'm trying to stay fresh for when the game actually comes out, instead of burning out, spending like 200 more hours in the demo. But Anchor Rage, if I remember correctly, it was like a counter that you did, and depending on how powerful the attack was that you countered, you would get a damage buff, a very short damage buff. And Spiral Thrust essentially is a lightning-fast 2-step maneuver to reposition and counterattack. This attack uses your shield to parry, then uses a wire bug to send you thrusting forward. Use it to confuse your target and unleash a wave of strikes. I seem to remember seeing this in a very early demo, in a very early trailer for Rise, where you actually see the lance go forwards and then backwards and then forwards and then backwards. I think that's the move that we're talking about here, which is a pretty cool move, but at the end of the day, Anchor Rage I think is going to be a tough skill to give up on because it's very, very powerful as well. But let me know, Lance mains out there, how do you feel about this? Then, on the gun lance, I was actually confused, like, what weapon is that? Because you can't even see it properly, but yes, the gun lance, they finally showed us one of the Silkbind moves that we saw, and I think it was actually the first Monster Hunter Rise trailer, which is the Ground Splitter. Now, this can be switched out with Hail Cutter. Now, Hail Cutter is the ability where basically it just sends your hunter flying upwards and then slamming down. And you can replace that with Ground Splitter, and it uses a wire bug to move forward and jump into a vigorous upward slash. Scraping the gun lance in the ground heats up the barrel, temporarily increasing the damage dealt by shells, worm stake shots, and Wyvern's fire. Interesting. Increasing the damage dealt by shells, worm stake shots, and Wyvern's fire. I think the idea here is, from my initial interpretation at least, is that you would want to have Hail Cutter for normal shelling, and then you'd want to have Ground Splitter for either wide shelling or long shelling, because it just increases the damage of the shells, whereas the Hail Cutter just gives you access to a full burst with a reload. Because, you know, you really don't, at least in the previous games, you wouldn't want to be full bursting with wide shot. You could potentially full burst with long if you really wanted to, even though even then it's not that efficient. So usually you'd want a full burst only with normal shells, so Hail Cutter seems to be the best for normal shelling. But at the end of the day, Hail Cutter also reduced the cooldown on your Wyvern fire. So I don't know, it doesn't seem like Ground Splitter does that, but it increases damage on your shells. So, you know, it's a give and take situation, but I think that is what I would do in my initial impressions, just thinking about it. But it is a pretty cool move. I'm curious if you have a guard. It doesn't seem like you have a guard while you're doing this, because I seem to remember in the trailer it almost looked like you could kind of like power through the attack of the monster. But they don't really say anything about that here, so, you know. But the interesting thing here is that we also have 2 switch skills already revealed for the gun lance. So you have Ground Splitter, which replaces Hail Cutter, and you have a Blast Dash, which replaces Charged Shell. So we're just missing lucky number 3. That means that I think that Guard Edge is going to be a staple, or Guard Edge could be the other thing that you could replace. But what for? Dude, what about if we got the Nova? You guys remember the Nova attack? I don't even remember what the actual name of it was. Was it Dragon Blast? It was Dragon Blast. The big Nova explosion from GU. That'd be awesome. But I don't know if I would want to replace Guard Edge for it. I mean, I could replace it just for the memes, but Guard Edge is just so goddamn good. Feels so incredibly solid that it's going to be really hard for me to get rid of that in exchange for anything else. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Anyways, moving onwards, I know that I spent quite a lot more time because I am playing favorites with Gunlance, despite you guys not appreciating. I don't care. Next up, we have, this is the Switch Axe, right? Oh no, this is the hammer. This is the hammer. I'm sorry. I was looking at that thing and it almost looked like the Switch Axe. The Dash Breaker can be switched out with Silkbind Spinning Bludgeon, an attack performed by rushing forward with the help of a wire bug. Any enemy attack damage is negated while launching forward. So this is basically a charging front attack for the hammer. We saw this in the first Rampage trailer. He used it against Diablos, as you can see here in the picture that we got here. So it's just another power move for the hammer. I think this is one of those that is going to be somewhat situational depending on the monster. Sometimes you might want the Spinning Bludgeon. Other times you might want the Dash Breaker. But I think it's a pretty solid gap closer that you get with the hammer, because, you know, the Spinning Bludgeon takes you longer to get to your target, whereas the Dash Breaker seems to be like, no, I'm just going to go straight in there, slash in, boom, done. Next up, we have the Hunting Horn. I actually didn't like this skill. I read the skill and I don't know, my initial impressions is I don't think I'd like this, but it's the Bead of Resonance. Can be switched out with Earthshaker. Places a wire bug cocoon on the ground. If the same hunter generates melody effects, the effect also appears around the cocoon, as does a sonic wave that damages monsters near it. So basically, you put down a little cocoon thing in the ground whenever you play your tunes. People get the buff if they're close enough to that cocoon. I'm just wondering, what is the range on it? Like, can I place a wirebug cocoon in a completely different area and then go somewhere else where people are fighting? And if somebody goes around to the other area where I drop the cocoon, can I just like blow and give them buffs? Like, that'll be interesting to see, but I don't know. Sonic waves, though, those seem very interesting, but at the end of the day, this just reminds me a lot of the Wyvern Stake Blast, and I still have PTSD from Wyvern Stake Blast, so I can't really say that it's something I'm particularly excited about. Next up, we have, this is the Switch Axe. Soaring Wyvern Blade, and it can be switched out with Invincible Gambit. Now, it better be friggin' legendary in terms of what it does if it's going to be replacing Invincible Gambit, because Invincible Gambit was so friggin' good. It was one of the main reasons I enjoyed the Switch Axe as much as I did in the demo. So this Soaring Wyvern Blade better be really good. Uses a wire bug to fly up while slashing, ending with a forward slash from mid-air. If the forward slash is successful, the weapon's activation gauge fills up. A large explosion goes off where it connected. So, you know, it's doing crazy Switch Axe things, more acrobatics, which I just think we're going to make the Switch Axe even more popular than it already was. So I'm down for it. We already saw this move. I even talked about it in the previous video. So it looks like a really fun move. There's really no downsides here. I mean, with the exception that Invincible Gambit is so good, though. This is going to be, actually, now that I think about it, this is going to be a tough choice because Invincible Gambit is the one that basically just lets you power through anything and retain mobility. So that was one of my main skills that I really enjoyed. It's going to be a tough choice, but this one is just a really stylish one. So depending on how good it is, how good it feels, if it feels as good as Invincible Gambit, then yeah, but I don't know. This one's going to be a tough pick for Switch Axe out there. Next up, we have the Charge Blade, the Axe Hopper. This is the new move that we saw again. I think this was in the Rampage trailer. The first time you saw it, you see someone just basically slamming down on a monster from mid-air. This one can be switched out with Counter Peak Performance, which was, I'm assuming, is the Charge Blade's counter. Again, I haven't played the demo in a while. You slam the axe overhead using recoil and iron silk to propel you into the air. While going upwards, you can unleash a powerful element discharge. It's stylish as all hell, and if it replaces the counter, I think that's actually a good move, because that counter is really powerful, but it also leaves you open a lot. So I don't know. I would have to test this one out, but Charge Blade mains out there, do let me know. I'm very curious, because I know that you've seen this move. I think that some of you would probably prefer having this one switch out against the gap closing move. I know that I would prefer that. Give me the counter peak and this one instead of the gap closing one. That would be my preferred setup for Charge Blade. But you know, this one's going to be a tough choice. Next up, we have the Insect Glaive. And a lot of you guys were wondering, do we have the plunging attack from the Insect Glaive? Yes, you do. It is called the Diving Wyvern. Can be switched out with Recall Kinsect. Hey, considering how many people were hating on Recall Kinsect, there you go. You can just replace Recall Kinsect for Diving Wyvern. Personally, hell no, dude. Recall Kinsect, when I played it, became one of my favorite things about the Insect Glaive. I would sooner replace the other one. What's it called? The Silkbind Vault. I would sooner replace the Silkbind Vault than I would Recall Kinsect, because Recall Kinsect is just that good. But the description of that skill is devastating dive attack that uses wire bug to pull you downward with great force. The attack has a small damage radius, but that means the damage is highly focused. So basically, you got to be very precise with this particular attack right here. But when you land on a monster, it's going to deal a crap ton of damage. Doesn't mention anything about the bug. Because one of the things about this attack in Monster Hunter World was that when you did it, your insect would just like go through and do a piercing attack on the monster. Doesn't seem like the Diving Wyvern does that, or if it does that, it's not in the description of the website. But here's the thing, and this is a cool thing. Me and Gaijin are going to be talking about this tomorrow, and I'm sure he's going to be checking out the Japanese version on these skills. So we'll probably be able to provide maybe a little bit more context on the Third Fleet podcast. So make sure you tune into that. That should go live on Wednesday if everything goes according to plan, which is actually perfect because Wednesday is the one day that there aren't any Monster Hunter events. So instead of having the monster, because the Monster Hunter events are 8th, 9th, and 11th. So on the 10th, which is Wednesday, you get the Third Fleet podcast. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that Capcom was aware of that, and that's why they did it the way that they did it. It is what it is, man. You know, me and Gaijin, we're getting pretty big with Third Fleet. I'm joking. Completely and utterly joking. Anyway, next up we have the light Bogun, which has Fanning Maneuver. Can be switched out with Fanning Vault. Now, Fanning Vault is the one that allowed you to basically jump above the monster and drop like a little mine on top of the monster, or even just cluster the monster from above if you want to. So yeah, this one's going to be a tough pick because I actually kind of like that move significantly. But this one's description is a maneuver using a wire bug and centrifugal force to quickly flank left or right, also temporarily ups attack power. Shots can be fired while in motion. I think this one might be more... I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to blast monsters with mines, then you're going to want Fanning Vault. If you want to just actually use your ammo, then you probably want Fanning Maneuver, which I think is going to make Fanning Maneuver the more universal skill selected. But that's just my gut feeling after reading into this initial thing. But again, I don't play a lot of light bowguns, so you guys let me know. Then we have for the heavy bowgun, Counter Charger. Can be switched out with Counter Shot. A parrying skill using wire bugs absorbs an attack from a monster without taking any damage, will shorten the amount of time needed for a charged shot. So I would assume this would be like a temporary buff, almost like a focus buff, so that you can do charged shots faster. Oh, interesting. I think that one's going to be hella powerful, more powerful than Counter Shot. Even though I really liked Counter Shot, this one just feels like it would be much more useful for the heavy bowgun. But yeah. Then finally, for the bow, we have Aerial Aim. Can be switched out with Focus Shot. Which one was Focus Shot? Focus Shot was not Herculean Draw. Herculean Draw was the one that gave you the damage buff. So Focus Shot was the one that jumped backwards and gave you stamina. So I kind of feel like Focus Shot's going to be more useful for you early in the game before you get your stamina management skills. Then once you get your stamina management skills, Aerial Aim might end up being better, depending on what the skill actually does, because I haven't even read it. An action for firing arrows by jumping straight up with a wire bug. Particularly damaging shots can be fired from mid-air. Close range attack using an arrow can also be aimed directly underneath you. Huh. Wonder if you can... I haven't really looked at the... I think they showed this skill in one of the trailers, but I didn't pay too much attention to it because bow is not really my main. But yeah, those are the switch skills that we know so far for Monster Hunter Rise. How do you guys feel about the switch skill, the switch moveset system? What do they call it again? The switch skill system? How do you guys feel about that system? Let me know in the comment section below. I know that it is somewhat similar to what we previously had when it comes to hunting styles. But it is also different at the same time because you can kind of like pick and choose which ones you want, even though there's only going to be 3 per weapon. So that in that way, it's also not like completely overwhelming. I mean, imagine if you could trade every single moveset in the weapon. That'd be a little bit too much. So we got 3 major decisions that you make in a weapon between 6 different skills that you may or may not want for that weapon. Also, depending on which monster you're fighting. I think that's going to be very, very interesting. But let me know what you guys think about the system in the comment section down below. And also let me know which one of these switch skills seemed the most appealing to you. I'll tell you guys right now, one of my favorite things was definitely charged shelling into blast dashing. But that's because, you know, I'm a Gunlance main. Always am, always will be. Always was, always will be. I'm sorry. Confused, sleep deprived, all of that stuff. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.